Welcome to the discussion episode of our Burn Bryte series, everyone. We'll be getting to the episode soon, but first, announcements.
Woo! All right, first up, one Kickstarter that just recently opened up that we are very excited about is for a game called Thirsty Sword Lesbians. This is a Powered by the Apocalypse game with swords, magic, and romance. And it's got a boatload of really amazing names behind the game and its stretch goals. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes.
I just saw that Ajay Pandey was doing some diceless dueling rules for it.
Yeah, there's some really, really good names behind it.
Yeah, I haven't got it. I backed it. I haven't gotten a chance to look at what it is, but I was I don't know. It's got cool people attached to it. I'll back it. Why not?
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, it's basically the title of the game is everything you need to know. That's all you need.
I mean, honestly, that was enough for me. So.
And I know my design partner, Amr Amaraz, is doing a superhero version of the game.
Cool.
Module. So
awesome.
That should be really fun.
That should be. Another Kickstarter you should not miss out on is the Unbound Kickstarter from Grant Howitt and Chris Taylor. They are reprinting this game that they originally kickstarted in 2016. We are covering it in our next series. Unfortunately, we couldn't get it in before the Kickstarter. But you have to take our word for it that this game is fantastic. It is like the best session zero you will ever have, I think is how they describe it. And it absolutely was. It was one of my favorite recordings that we've done. This game is bananas. It's absolutely worth looking at. The promised return on Kickstarter investment is supposed to be pretty soon too, because they're basically using the money to hit print and then you get your game. So they're very excited for this one. So it's Unbound, and like everything else, we'll put a link to it in the show notes, but definitely take a look at it. Yeah,
absolutely. And speaking of session zeros, if you missed out on the session zero to the Chimera campaign that I'm starting up on Twitch, you can actually catch up on the first part of our session zero over on my Twitch page at twitch.chimera.games. And also don't miss out on the first full actual play session of the Cape and Blade stream coming this Friday. My design partner, Amr, is running a group through a different Chimera campaign, set in a world of flying islands over a mostly water world. This sounds very familiar to next series.
What?
With fish and crab people. That's a spoiler for our show.
I don't think we have any crab people, though.
No, not the latter, but the former part.
The flying islands.
Yeah, you'll see. And it's just amazing all around. So check out what they came up with and hear a really cool stream at capeandblade.chimera.games.
That should be everything for the announcements part of this episode. You can stick around at the end of the episode for our call to action and, of course, outtakes. But first, let's get on with the show.
Enjoy.
Welcome back to our discussion episode. Last time we created characters for Burn Bryte. This episode we'll be discussing the character creation process. We are thrilled to welcome back Celeste Conowitch and Eugenio Vargas. Do you want to reintroduce yourselves for everyone at home? Tell us a little bit about the character you made last time.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone, again. My name's Eugenio. You might know me as DM Jazzy Hands. Primarily, I am the dungeon master and producer of an actual play D&D podcast called The Last Refuge. You can find me on Twitter at DM Jazzy Hands, the show at DND Last Refuge. And I do lots of other things that I'm not going to list right now. You should check out my website, eugeniovargas.com. I'm sure there'll be a link in the episode notes because I'm not going to tell you how to spell it right now.
Cool. You're driving. You don't have a pen anyway.
Well, this is the thing, right? Like, I mean, it would be very flattering if you pulled over and wrote this down right now, but that seems excessive. Mm-hmm. My character that I created last week is a Peacecraft. The Peacecraft are they're giant robots. Not to put too fine a point on it. They were created as weapons, essentially. They attained sort of independent sentience, and their makers, the civilization that created the Peacecraft, was destroyed in the wars that the Peacecraft were created for. So the Peacecraft have now, as a species, dedicated themselves to never participating in war again. So that is a little bit about the Peacecraft. Mine's name is Alienware 17, because it is. Peacecraft will often be named with a name and then a number after it, because Peacecraft are essentially immortal, except in specific circumstances. When their physical body dies, their brain gets uploaded to a server and can be re-downloaded into a new body.
So is this the 17th incarnation of Alienware?
Yeah, exactly. This one's been around. For 16 previous incarnations and many more in the future, we hope. Just super briefly, a little bit more about him. Let's see. We'll just talk about his main goal in life, his story path, because we're going to talk about advancement later. Basically, he wants to figure out how to upgrade himself to a higher form of life. And we talked a little bit last week, I think, if I remember correctly, about how he is in particular considering ways to integrate biological components into his body.
Very cool.
And hey, my name is Celeste Conowitch. I am a freelance tabletop role-playing game designer out there in the world. I'm also the producer for Venture Maidens, an actual play D&D podcast, and the game master for the Roll20 First Look Burning Daylight Burn Bryte game. So that's what I'm doing here. I love Burn Bryte, and I'm excited to talk about it, including the character that I made last time, which is named Frongo. And Frongo is an Olran, which is a species of crystalline humanoids. So basically their bodies are entirely formed of crystal, and as they age, they become harder and more compact until the point when they actually can't move anymore. So the Olran as a species are very militaristic in their culture. So they are raised with, a high value put on efficiency, and actually working as part of the Olran military is required. So my Olran in particular, I took a bunch of special abilities that have to do with like a crystalline glow feature. So I have an inner glow that I can like shine out with bright crystal light. And then I have also the strong glow, which is the bigger version of that, where I can actually like blind people or hurt people with my radiance. And since I am super into radiant and, making beautiful things, since I am a beautiful crystal being, I took the story path, create masterpiece, because I think Frongo's mission in life is to create the most beautiful sword in existence. So that is their entire quest. So that's me, and that's Frongo.
Awesome. Amelia, why don't you tell us about your character?
Sure. I made a glean named Hullabaloo. So for my story path, I picked Bond. Really, Hullabaloo just wants to make friends. That's kind of their whole thing. And I do remember last time now buying a lot of flashlights for everybody.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Because I didn't know what to spend all my money on.
Bribe people with flashlights to be your friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, look, I have this flashlight. Please come be friends with me. No, and a lot of my special abilities revolve around healing. Also I can breathe air and swim in water and do all of those fun things too.
Yeah.
And I'm immune to toxins, apparently.
Basically an alien jellyfish with a crystal in your head or something like that.
I think so.
It's very adorable. If you see the artwork, it's quite adorable.
I definitely remember having more ideas about this character last time, but everyone listening, it has been a while since we recorded the first part of our series. So if there are things that came up before and you're like, why didn't that come up again? It's because we forgot.
Yep.
I immediately started doing like I do on my show and pretending that it's been a week exactly since the last time we met. Right?
Awfully forgetful even for a week. All right, Ryan, what about you?
All right. So I created an Eno of the or variety, which means that I am a cat person alien type being with ties to the scientific community. And let me see if I can get her name right. Tesela Morgana Mishra Helio Aria Tiana Roswin-Kel. Otherwise, you can call her Tiana Roswin.
That's magical.
Yes.
That is so many names, Ryan.
I know. It only took me a month and a half to get that name crafted. So
I think it was worth the wait.
But
It's like how long it takes me to come up with a regular name.
The irony of all of that is my story path is double life. So that means I have to make up another name for myself. But not as part of character creation, because the new you is the first part of the path. And that is crafting another character that you want to become effectively. And I kind of helped that along with some equipment that I bought. I bought one of those face-changing disguise badges, where it basically you can think of what you want to look like. And this, I don't know, through hollow magic, I guess, makes you look that way. And that's kind of cool. So, yeah, I'm trying to escape from my former life. I think it was because I was on the outs with the scientific community of the Eno because of my fringe theories about the burn that is trying to consume the entire galaxy.
Yeah, you never stop to ask if you should with your science.
That's right.
And actually, I have theories since last time we recorded, but I'll keep those to myself for now until maybe the fanfic portion. So yeah, that's Tiana Roswin.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into a segment we call D20 for your thoughts.
D20 for your thoughts?
All right. In this segment, we want to talk to our guests about their thoughts on the character creation process and how it relates to this system and to other games. But first, we like to get to know our guests a bit better. So we are going to get the cliche question out of the way. Can you tell us how you got into RPGs in the first place?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. So I got into RPGs about 15 years ago. So when I was growing up, my dad in college played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. And then, later in life when he moved out, there came a point where my mom was like, oh, I'm going to get rid of all your dad's like old junk. And like, do you want any of it? You like go through the boxes. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw it away. So I was like, okay. So I went through the boxes and I found one that had, a permanent marker written on the side of this brown cardboard box, D&D. And I was like, what is happening? So I opened up the box and that box was full of books and notes about dragons and fantasy worlds and monsters, and had a bunch of like also my dad's like handwritten campaign notes from when he ran games and like his character sheets. And so it was just a ton of treasures that had been jammed in this box. And I was definitely hooked right then and there. I was like, what? Like it's not just a book. It's a game you can play with people. What is going on? So I read those books so much religiously, and it was probably years later that I got to, so no, I've been, I guess, into RPGs for longer than 15 years, not to date myself. I've been playing for about 15 years. And at that point, eventually somewhere in middle school, I think I was able to like get a group together for the first time and actually start running games. And then, you know, some years ago when like podcasting and RPGs became a big thing, that was when I started Venture Maidens, and I learned 5th edition D&D to actually start Venture Maidens because I had been playing older editions because I had no idea there was such a cool community of people on the internet who loved games. So when I started the podcast, I was like, wow, oh my gosh, there's so many cool people out here, and there are so many games out here. So really over the last 5 years, I have had the privilege of learning so many other games on top of, you know, the gateway game, Dungeons and Dragons, and just getting to know RPGs. And in the last year, I've actually started writing them. So I am now a full-time freelance writer for RPGs. So I guess that's a story like 20 years in the making of how I am here in desperately in love with role-playing games.
I love how your introduction began with an actual like facsimile of an adventurer's treasure find.
Yeah. That weird
so
box in the garage. And then
I could just see you opening it up in the gold glow.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I love that you actually got to get that though, because I like was already making this podcast and playing games and all that kind of stuff. And I was sitting on the floor in the basement, like flipping through one of my RPG books or something. And my mom goes to my dad, look at those nerds. Remember you used to do that? And I went,
You're like, oh, Dad.
What? What? And he's like, yeah, in high school. I was like, I had to figure this out all on my own.
Oh,
like,
no.
There's all these years I could have been playing games. You never told me.
oh, yes. Eugenio, how about yourself?
Nothing quite so storied and epic.
Oh boy.
Mine is a much more recent journey. I grew up mostly with video games, and I loved RPG video games. But sort of honestly, I mean, I guess I had heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but couldn't have told you really much about it for a long time. And a few months before 5th edition came out, so that would be like 6.5 years ago now or so. I was at home run night with one of my roommates, and we'd both had a few drinks, and he turned to me and he said, "There's something I have to tell you." And I can tell you that I did not anticipate what he was going to tell me, but I anticipated just about every other possible option. So he turns to me and I like heart racing a million miles an hour. And he goes, "I have always really wanted to play D&D. And I went, huh? Oh, yeah, cool, dude. Me too. And the rest is sort of, I guess, as they say, history. I had some friends in a choir that I was the associate conductor for at the time, who I knew played a regular weekly game. So I asked one of them if they would mind if my roommate and I came and joined them. And this group is still together in some permutation and has been for almost 15 years now. So they're pretty careful about their group. So we had to go and like observe and for lack of a better term, audition to play with this group who was still playing 3.5 at the time. But fortunately, they embraced us with open arms. And we started playing there. The 5e starter set came out not too long after that, and the core book started coming out. And I had one of them with me at a rehearsal for a show that I was subbing in on the keyboard for. My friend was the director. She spotted the book and said, "Oh my God, is that D&D?" And I said, yes. And so she then told me about this plan that she had always had to get a group of her girlfriends together to play D&D, but they'd never gotten it actually to happen because no one would run the game. And she said, "Will you run it for us?" And I said, "Well, I'm not one of your girlfriends, but if that's okay, then yes, I will do that." And so we started running Lost Mine of Phandelver, a group of, I guess there was 6 of us, 5 players and me. And we played every week for years and years. That group is now scattered to the 4 corners of the country, although several of them are now on my podcast. So we are still playing together all these years later. So yeah, that's sort of how it all started for me as a bit of a drunken accident.
There are worse drunken accidents to have.
Yes, there are.
Truly.
And I was ready for any of them. I killed a man. What? No, I just want to play D&D.
Oh, I guess that's fine. Can you tell us your process for picking and creating characters in any game when you sit down to play?
I think it sort of depends on. There are a lot of factors that really change it up for me. Is it going to be 1 to 3 sessions? Is it going to be short? Is it going to be a longer form campaign? Do I know the people that I'm playing with or the GM? All of that sort of really informs where I go. You know, if it's something shorter, if it's people that I'm comfortable with, then I'm going to find something sort of goofy and outlandish to put together. Something, very against typical type. If it's going to be something longer or something where I don't know some of the players as well or the GM as well, there's some old standby tropes that I am particularly comfortable with. I love a rogue or anything sort of around that that is sort of snarky and sarcastic and sassy. That's an easy trope for me to build off of if I'm not so comfortable with the people that I'm playing with yet, if I don't know them as well. Yeah, I don't know. I'd never really thought about it because it is so different with every, circumstance for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I'm absolutely that player who demands that everybody else picks their character first before I pick my character, because I always love to see what everybody else has made, and then I like to cover a base that hasn't been covered, just to because if we have a bunch of magic slingers in the party, I don't want to also be slinging magic. I want to be special and different, so I'll pick a fighter, or if we're playing Burn Bryte, if everybody picks a bug person, I definitely don't want to do that. So I go the other way.
You don't want to pick a bug person.
I'll go the other way and pick a robot. I really love balancing parties with different points of view or experience. It's the same thing if you're playing something like Call of Cthulhu where you're all professions. If everybody is picking blue collar jobs, I'm going to go ahead and be the up in the clouds like pre-med student or something. I always want to bring something else to the party because I love playing that opposition. So that takes me in some interesting directions when I play games, because sometimes I will just pick the thing that is most different. And, exploring what that is, it's a good way to figure out what your preferences are or not, just always picking the total opposite of things. But that's usually how I go about picking my characters. I don't have more of a schooled method for doing so other than just being an upstart.
So how do we think character creation in Burn Bryte stacks up to other systems that we've played? How would you compare that?
Well, the fact that, character creation was done with an eye to doing it on Roll20, it's such a smooth process. With just the way that Charactermancer is formatted, you have all of the details about each options in a little panel to the right. You're clicking through in an order that I think generally makes a good bit of sense. And even if and when, expanded character options become available, I don't see the character creation process becoming super unwieldy. There aren't the species. There are 8 options, and they're all, pretty well delineated. The system background, those options are fairly clear, and you could certainly make different combinations, but the basic stats of each of those is fairly clear. The only thing that has a lot to click through really are the story paths, although you can rely on their titles to at least give you an idea of flavor without having to really read through each step of it, and the equipment. But I think it's really pretty well streamlined.
Yeah, what I really found interesting about Burn Bryte characters versus other systems characters is they've really kind of done away with the idea of race versus class or species versus class. Because usually when I pick a character, I always think class first. I'm like, what is my job going to be? I'm going to be a wizard. I'm going to be sneaky. I'm going to, be a doctor. Like, that's usually how I think about things. So in this game, there is no like job or profession, right? It's just your species that dictates what all of your abilities are. And so you can have, 2 gleans in the party, but they can be wildly different gleans, based on what evolutionary special abilities they have. So I found that really interesting to really switch my perspective on what a character would be and how they would interact in the world, because the identity of my species comes first in Burn Bryte, as opposed to the identity of my job or my class. So I found that really, really interesting. And honestly, I was worried about not enjoying that when I started playing Burn Bryte, but I fell in love with it very quickly. And honestly, the fact that there are, only these 8 species or these 8 sapients, in Olaxis makes like every NPC in the game feel more relatable somehow because, people are all sort of from the same places or the same lineages, It's sort of hard to explain, but it just makes everything feel more connected and like you all make more sense as a group together because you're just kind of people like in the world doing things instead of like a person who's trained in the assassin arts of whatever. So that was the big thing for Burn Bryte character creation for me that really set it apart from a lot of other systems I've played.
It's really interesting because going through the process, it's easy to use the tool that they have on Roll20 to just say, okay, I want this option. Okay, and that gives me this. Okay, and then go to the next thing, get this option, and so on and so on. But all that lore that's like literally right there, either if you click on the information button right next to the option, or you click on the option itself, and boom, there's some information for you. There's a lot of really good lore for pretty much everything that you can choose in this game, which is fantastic. And reading through all of that, especially seeing all of the you can definitely see there's like an eye for alien biology in a lot of the background lore, which is really interesting. It really preps you for an understanding of what this galaxy is kind of like, especially diving into a little bit of what the systems are all about for that lore, or the overarching galactic lore that you can get to before you even go into character creation if you want. There's just a lot of really interesting stuff there to kind of fit yourself into as a character.
Yeah, but I also like on the flip side of that, it never feels like you have to master lore to choose character options. So they really got an elegant balance when designing this game for the people who want to read more and know more and look for a place in the lore, or the people who don't want to do any of that but want to pick cool things. It's really appeals to both types of players.
Yeah,
well, and it's easy because like the book info is like book, quote unquote, is all linked in the character building part. So you get to a part where you're like, I don't know what this thing is or what it does. And you click it and it'll open that section of the book for you so you can read it there. So like looking at you, Fantasy Flight, with your terrible indexes, it's so much easier this way. Like it makes it really simple and quick. And there are times where I'm building a character in a game and it's like, well, I don't know what that thing does. So rather than look it up, I'm just not going to pick that option because it would take too much time to go find that thing. And, and this eliminates a lot of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had to recreate my character because for some reason I had a glitch on my old character. And it was super easy to just be like, okay, I kind of remember what I did. Oh, yeah. No, okay. I remember this and this and this and this. And then I was done. Like 10 minutes. And I had a fully fleshed out character and it was pretty easy to go through that. So once you're familiar with the system, it's really easy to just go in and say, okay, I want these skills to be high. I want these skills to be low. And here's a good balance. And now I know what all these numbers and everything mean, and it just makes sense.
Yeah. How do you feel like the process of character creation reinforces the feel of the game?
I think some of what Celeste already said sort of talks about this, and it revolves around, the lack of classes, the people doing heroic things as opposed to, a rogue, a wizard, a fighter, and a cleric doing heroic things. There's not a ton of crunch in the character creation, right? Even when you're picking the die sizes for your skills, the descriptions of each skill are fairly straightforward and short, a sentence, maybe 2 sentences. And then you pick your die sizes, and that, I think, really enforces this idea of, people who do heroic things. The fact that you can mix and match skills and get creative and use whatever you want in all kinds of situations, is really reinforced when you look at those lists and you say, well, I've got a D12 and 2 D10s and 3 D8s and 6 D6s to assign. I don't know. I don't have a real sense of, what this person's heroic class would be, but I could start thinking about who they are as a person if their, knowledge and engineering is really high, but their empathy is really low, right? It shifts it to really think about character narrative, because ultimately when you're actually playing the game, you're going to have dice of all sizes. You're going to want to use dice of all sizes. So ultimately, to really power game your stats in character creation is A, kind of difficult, and B, super pointless, if I may say. And I think the process makes that pretty clear. It doesn't put more emphasis on picking your stat dice than it does on picking your background system or your equipment or your story path. It's all just sort of there as part of this narrative.
Yeah, and something I've had the privilege of getting to play with a lot of different groups for Burn Bryte. So it's always really interesting to see how people interact with this new game and what kind of journeys they go through as players. And I think this game in the macro theme and in actual play is a game about discovery, because, in this universe, right, that is this galaxy that is collapsing. The question is, what do you do? What do you do in this moment? What are you doing with the time you have? And that really comes through in play, because, you don't have so many things built out for you. You don't have this bullet point, oh, I can do these 3 things, and that's what makes me good at my character. It's always discovering how you would use the skills you have. What are your go-to tricks? Developing in combat. What does it look like being a social character in combat? You absolutely have the freedom to start at 0 and then kind of explore what your character does in each and every moment and how you use all the different tools that have been provided to you by the game. So usually, session 1 or 2, players are a little bit confused by the amount of freedom they have. But, you watch them and they try something and immediately this light goes off and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I can use a turn to set up an advantage. Awesome. And then, they do it again, and then it builds and it becomes this awesome spiral of them, learning how their character works, both mechanically and in this world. And so characters get defined really well because they're given the space in character creation to grow and to change. I mean, the story path mechanic is literally that. You are exploring a facet of yourself and advancing it. And every part of this game and the character creation feels all about that kind of advancement about how do you do what you do.
Yeah, I remember listening to Autonomic, which uses the same system as Burn Bryte. And you could hear after a couple of episodes when they first start doing advantages, they're like, wait, we can spend our turns doing that effectively. And then it's like, okay, yeah, let's do that because it seems to help. And actually, when I was making my character, one of my abilities that I chose was based on if we have 4 advantages banked, during the current scene. So I can see myself or other characters on the team creating advantages to just activate these abilities, which will make things much more interesting throughout the whole session, which is kind of cool. So we like to look at the character sheets too before we actually even dive into character creation at times, and discuss kind of the intention behind the sheet's design, and what sort of story that it tells. Since this game is experienced entirely through Roll20, what thoughts do you have about these character sheets, since they are completely digital and not at all designed with pen and paper in mind?
Sure. So something I have encountered, I do think these sheets, because they are designed to be simple and, instead of a lot of words explaining what's going on, there's a lot of symbols on this game. So like to do conditions, it's a heart with a plus in it, nowhere does it say like this is a minor condition on the actual sheet. So I do think that is an adjustment for people who are used to character sheets with a lot of information. I know when running games, I've had to explain specifically what those symbols mean, and it does take people a little while to get it. So it is very symbol oriented and like geometry, which I think actually works for really well for this new generation we're seeing of tabletop role players, where, because, if I was walking into this and I had never played a game before, I think it would be very intuitive to like press a big heart and I get something good with a plus in it, and, pick the little negative heart and I think I get something bad. But I do think it is, it's challenging players who have played a lot of other games to kind of retrain their brains to use this interface. So I can definitely see that being a challenge for players used to other systems, but it's a bold design choice, and I think it works well for this game in particular.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The thing for me that has come up a couple of times as someone who is used to pen and paper is that there isn't an obvious place on the character sheet for notes. You think about a pen and paper character sheet and you're just scribbling all over it everywhere. You're turning it over to the back and you're writing down important NPC names and things like that. There are places that you can do that on here, but they're not on sort of that central character sheet tab that you're probably going to have up most of the time, which is interesting because this is such a narrative and story focused. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum at this point about, how much it's about discovery and creating stories and not sort of feeling beholden to character tropes and classes like in other games. And so, it feels like a free write space might be a good thing for the sheet. But on the other hand, I think Celeste is absolutely right. I think it's about just getting used to the system. There isn't an easy way to have a scribble pad on a digital character sheet, unless you have a tablet and a stylus and the capability to do that. There's not an easy, universally accessible way to do that. And so actually, I think the way that a lot of the rest of the character sheet is laid out, I think sort of takes care of some of that for you. And it is just a bit of a learning curve for us, for those of us who are used to having pen and paper sheets. It hasn't adversely affected our game of it. I have noted it on a couple of occasions, but found solutions pretty simply, and it hasn't been a problem. I think that's a thing,
like playing online generally, like regardless of Roll20 or regardless of Burn Bryte, like that's just a thing that you kind of have to get used to. Like you can still print out a physical sheet and stuff, but like making notes and, like when you're using Roll20 for any kind of game, I think is still like, it's a little bit of a learning curve. Like I keep a notebook and, put my notes in there and then that solves that. Like,
just get a character journal. It'll be fine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. And I only pointed out for Burn Bryte in particular, because, we're talking about designing this character sheet from the ground up for this system. Right. And rather than try to design and develop some way to have a scratch pad on the character sheet, they just said, we're going to teach our players from jump, that this is the important information that we've got for you. And, just getting used to finding your own solutions like that.
Yeah, I will say I was pretty scared when Roll20 came to me and was like, hey, do you want to run this game? And I was like, yes. And they're like, it's all exclusively on Roll20, so you're going to have to learn it and show it off. And I was like, oh, God.
Cool.
That was the scariest part of the process because I know, I'm one of those people who considers myself, with work, I am proficient at best with technology, but it always takes work. So that was definitely the scariest part of learning this game and running it, especially with all these eyes on me. So I will say at first it was absolutely a challenge because I'm fighting, all the instincts in my body where I have like a paper notebook where I keep all of my campaign notes forever and then like running the system. And it was like hard for the first couple episodes because those two things were fighting. But the more I run this game, and I've had to learn like, you don't have the scratch pad space or like, where do you put things? Now I find myself almost never using my paper notebook I did at the start because now I can create files where I save all of my tokens. And I've found places where I can make my campaign notes and like I can do my journal sections that I can quick reference. So it certainly is a training process, and it makes your brain work different, but it does start working, when you invest the time in it.
Absolutely.
I like to, because there are all of those visual cues on the sheet, that it's kind of easy to tell how to play right from the sheet. Because like, it's like, I have a D4 in computers. There's computers. There's a little like triangle with a 4 in it next to it. And it's like, okay, I can tell exactly how good I am, as opposed to being like, okay, what die do I roll? And then what modifier do I add to it? And then it's like, because it's an interactive character sheet too, like I can click the things and it will do it for me. But it is really easy to visually see like, okay, clearly I am better at presence. I have a bigger die. Like, it becomes really easy to see what things are used for and how to use them.
And I just clicked on one of the dice for the skills and it pops up with a complexity rating. You can type in a condition bonus and it gives you a total as well or whatever. And then you just roll and then it pops up in the chat and tells you what happened and if you pass. And it's so easy. So my first attempt at a skill roll was to deceive at a 4 complexity, and I just passed it.
You're very good at deceiving. That's a hard complexity.
So yeah, it's really cool because since it's all online, you don't have to pick up actual dice. You just click a couple buttons, and there's your skill roll, and you can kind of even forget about some of those rules because it does it all for you. So it's really interesting how this is all set up here.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers being GM for this game because you never roll any dice.
Oh yeah,
not a single one.
I like games like that. I know Numenera, the Cypher system has that. PBTA is very notorious for that. Yeah, and Burn Bryte as well. I love putting all of that onto the player's hands.
There are some, but what I do like there are some random table macros. So if you want to use those, and you don't have to, you are welcome to use those to create random chaos as a GM. So I always get really excited when I get to roll on my my chaos random tables.
So
Eugenio knows too well.
So much fun.
So fun for everyone. It's great.
Oh no, your ship has a hole. You're getting sucked into space.
Oh no. Who could have seen that coming? What do you think is one of the biggest flaws of character creation in the system? And then what do you think is a thing that it does best?
I think... And this is something that's just going to improve as more people play and as Roll20 continues to get feedback. But because there is no, I mean, I suppose you could print out one of these sheets and make one, but there isn't a analog backup system that comes with this. And so there are a few just tech things that we discover that do odd things. You know, I somehow during one of our episodes turned my character sheet into that of a blip, a small teleporty
Fox
dog creature, fox creature. Yeah. You know, there are a few things when you're creating your character that don't fully give you the information that you could find in the rule book, or that maybe are several clicks away. And I think all of that stuff is just, it's going to get better as more people are exposed to the system. Roll20 so far has been pretty receptive when we have pointed out particularly, difficult glitches that we've found.
Yeah, I do know since we've recorded, they've updated a version 2 to everything. So they fixed a ton of bugs and stuff just from a month ago when we recorded.
Yeah, I remember there was like a slight thing with figuring out like where points were coming from when we were putting dice into things or something like that.
Yeah, I would actually, knowing now that there's a version 2, I'd be interested to click through it again.
It feels simpler when I was recreating my character too.
Oh,
so
maybe they did.
For assigning those dice. So
Good.
I just
So that's, just having to rely on fickle technology is perhaps a flaw of creation.
But that also does make it easier to fix those things, unlike a printed book when you send it out and it's like, well,
that's it.
You get what you get. I guess like here's our online 50 pages of errata that we're putting out every month.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that was actually exactly what I was going to say. A perfect segue is that, the things that might be problematic now are so easy to fix. Another sort of thing that we've already talked about is, once you've created the character, is that the dice are all there and it does all of that for you. That's awesome. There are no math hurdles to get over. There are no remembering what die to use to get over. That's all great. I don't know, maybe sometimes I kind of miss playing with my math rocks. Not me personally, not actually all that much. I do love dice, but like not enough to be sad about it. But like, as we move to this digital sort of world of tabletop role playing, they're just things that we sort of have to get used to changing. And there are definitely benefits to all of them. Speaking of updating with errata, I'll never forget, I was reading through, we got sent a PDF of the book before we all started to play. And I was reading through and I don't remember what species it was, but in the list of suggested names for the species, I saw that one of the names happened to be a not terrible, but like kind of a rude word in another language that I happen to speak. And so I messaged the Roll20 team and they were like, oh my God, we're so sorry. I was like, you apologize to me. I thought it was hilarious. I just like to know. And so like that is a tiny little errata thing that, just like you said, Amelia, like would require a PDF document to get out. And then now they just changed it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
Problem solved.
Yeah, and then next time you log in, it's fixed. You don't have to re-download a PDF or anything like that. It's just It's just all right there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do get. I used to be one of those people that was like, oh, I need physical dice, and like because I'd always played at a table, and like I do have like that tactile thing. Like I like dice. I've gotten used to not doing them, and like it turns everyone it's pretty okay. Like it's gonna be okay. You get used to it.
Yeah. And if you're on Roll20 with that, you can have the quote unquote virtual dice that roll all across the table, which I always found extremely satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I have some groups. I have a D&D group. We're playing through a D&D game on Roll20, and we use Roll20 for everything, but we just roll real dice too. And some of us roll in there, and some, it's just more options. What's great, about digital dice is it really helps with accessibility for some folks. So, folks who might not be able to see as well, digital dice is really great. They can, incorporate readers. And so it's just really nice, honestly, to have all the options sort of at your disposal.
And you never drop virtual dice on the floor.
Yes, you never step
have
on
to like
D4s.
crawl under your desk to find them.
You never step on them, which is
You
great.
always have
Great.
the right
This is great
dice
news.
because occasionally you're like, I have this set, and for some reason there's only 6 of them because my children were playing with them.
Oh no. Yeah, I think just for me, one of the, I don't know if it's a flaw necessarily, but I think something I would like to see or maybe consider for story paths, which is sort of the level advancement mechanic, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit. I feel like that is one of the most unique parts of this game, and it might behoove the system to not force people to pick a story path until they delve into an adventure in particular. So not making the story path part of character creation, but rather doing it at the top of like a session 0 of an adventure. Because I feel like there are some story paths that really steer what you're going to be doing, and some that work with adventures and some that totally don't work with adventures. And I can see that that's probably a lot of pressure for somebody to decide with a character they're still kind of meeting, like what their goal is going to be. So I think that is probably the part that's not quite working yet for me. But, you know, that can also be fixed too. Like, you can just redo your story path if you want, you know?
Yeah.
But that's I think probably the little hitch for me in character creation. But otherwise, I super enjoy the options and getting to see, you know, all the lore I want or all the lore I don't want during the character creation process is my favorite part.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Me.
Yeah. As the person who picked a story path that doesn't really work with our adventure, I +1 that all the way. I will also say, since we're talking about story paths a little bit, speaking of technological hiccups, ticking off steps of your story path is super intuitive. Choosing the upgrades the way that the Charactermancer then forces you into a screen where you can no longer see your stats, your die sizes, and then you have to choose what you want to upgrade. There's a fix in there that I am, I'm not a coder,
Better
so I don't know what
mine.
it is. Right, exactly. If this were pen and paper, I could maybe figure something out, right? But there is a fix there that will make that that advancement process. I feel like we're doing a segue now, but anyway, that advancement process a little bit more elegant.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to get into the group's cohesion portion of the show, aka the fan fiction portion. What are our fine alien folks up to? What do we do?
Ryan, I really like the idea that I just want to be your best friend. I want nothing more than that. I'm going to work really hard to be your best friend. But I do not know the real you. At all.
Because I would probably be coming into the adventure with like the semblance of an alternate personality, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm on the run from my homeworld or the or organization or whatever the science people are of the but yeah, I can definitely.
I feel like whatever the story is there, like you're certainly not telling me the truth about those things. And so like, I can see us getting to a point where like, I think that we're really great friends.
Yeah.
And something comes up where I see the real you and it's like devastating.
Oh, no.
Because it's so different. That's interesting.
Right.
Oh, no.
Oh,
like
sad.
Yeah.
I love
A game of betrayal.
my favorite kind.
Accidental betrayal. I'm sorry.
And this time it's you doing the backstabbing.
Uh-oh.
I mean, that's kind of fair. That's kind of what I designed my character for, is having kind of that double life or triple or quadruple life.
Yeah.
I mean, for my character, I'm sorry, what did I say? Frongo. So for Frongo, because Olran, typically, their homeworld is pretty great. It's sort of at the center of Alaxis, which is very safe, and they have a very structured society. So I feel like for Frongo to be traveling out around Alaxis, looking for the way to make this perfect weapon, it was probably somewhat of a bad break for Frongo to take off from Marthong, the home planet. of the Ulran. So I think maybe while I'm traveling Alexis looking for this perfect sword material, maybe I hire my services out as a mercenary. I mean, I clearly know a lot about weaponry. So, you know, and I have this military training background. So perhaps I was hired by one of you to help maybe conceal an identity, or if one of you has the ship and, you know, I'm the local muscle, I can definitely see Frango being involved in that capacity.
I'm also kind of thinking, since my character's on a journey to, while trying to hide, they're trying to find a solution to this burn. And I wonder if there's like one of my theories is has something to do with this material that you're seeking of sorts, or maybe like the origin of the material or whatever. Because I'm kind of theorizing that the burn originated from within the galaxy instead of from without, since it surrounds the entire galaxy.
Interesting.
So all of the other scientists, I'm guessing, are focused on, well, how do we stop it from something that's causing it on the outside? And I'm like, no, it came from in the house. We have to.
We could maybe stop it through the power of friendship.
Yeah.
Precious.
So how do we get a robot on our team then?
Yeah, I think Alienware 17 had the ship. I think I am traveling around trying to find a way to make myself unique, to make me feel like me physically. I think maybe I ran into Frango and maybe
we're both
you and
looking for materials, so maybe we decided we'll take the split. You organic, me metal. It'll be great.
I think that's eventually where we got to, and I think maybe at first I like tried to learn about weapons upgrades from you, and we like worked on that, and eventually we were both vying for the same resources, but also I was just like, no, this isn't right. Also, I'm real tired of racing you to the, you know, treasure chest in every system.
Yeah.
So let's split.
Oh my god, we were enemies that became friends.
Oh, the rivals.
I love that. We were rivals to friends. That was our story path before the story path.
That's right.
Rivals.
That's right.
Oh, that's amazing. I can even see Alienware 16 being the one that started the rivalry, and then something happened and 17 came back to say we can't
did I
keep
travel?
at it like this.
Did I travel to PAX to pick you up, 17, after you dramatically passed as 16?
Did you sacrifice yourself?
Oh my god! And I drove our ship back to pick you up.
Frango?
Oh my gosh! Are we in love? I think we're in love.
I love all of this. I am so sorry. I just need a second because you said something about traveling to PAX, and I got sad about not having conventions.
Oh no!
And like everything else in my brain turned off. Yes, we are definitely in love. I definitely sacrificed myself for you. This is all great. I love it now that I'm back.
So good.
Oh, I love this so much.
Our crystal and our robot person.
What a good group of people, except for me.
There always has to be one.
That's exactly right. There is always one.
I mean, okay,
and this time, dear listeners, it's not me.
I know, this is so weird. I'm normally not the backstabber one, but
I know you're normally the friendly one.
I don't think my character's inherently a bad person.
Of course not.
I think she is just like very focused on staying hidden. So even the closest of friends do not get to meet the real her. Which is just kind of sad, I guess. She's very sad internally.
Yeah. It's kind of lonely.
But I think she's kind of bubbly on the outside. I mean, she's got a fun name, so.
Yeah.
Well, then, that's how you know.
Exactly.
If you have a fun name, then obviously.
This is very cool. We've got a really fun group here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
We're ready to save Alexis.
Save the entire galaxy. One sword at a time.
Yes.
Amazing. All right. Well, in lieu of the amount of time that we have left, let's get into our advancement discussion and take it up a level.
Take it up a level. Take it up a level.
In this segment, we talk about character advancement and character growth. So we'll start. I kind of know the answer to this already because we've already touched on it a little bit. But how do characters grow and change as people within the narrative of the game?
I mean, the game, like we've mentioned before, the game is about discovery and choices. The galaxy is ending, not in the next 5 minutes, but also not in a million years. And so what do you do with that? And I think with every mission, adventure, quest, whatever that you go on, I think your characters learn what they do with that. You know, spoilers a little bit, I guess, for the adventure that comes with Burn Bryte for Burning Daylight. You know, our team on the stream game just recently reached a place where we are trying to save some hostages. I will make this as vague as possible. And there is nothing about the situation that we are in that we should suggest that we should stay there. We should have left a long time ago, and sorry, hostages. But what's interesting is that, and I can only speak for my character, I'm not going to speak for the other three, but for me, like, there was a moment, and I think I said it out loud, actually, there was a moment where I was like, we should go, but we have to save these hostages because that's what we were sent here to do, because that's what's right, because we have decided that we are on the side of like, humanity is a weird word to use since there are no humans, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And so Atash discovered that they, in fact, will put random strangers' safety in front of their own in situations like this. You know, it's no longer an abstract thing. And I think, you know, in the alternate universe where we finish up this mission and these four characters continue to adventure through space, I think that would very much sort of inform how Atash looks at future missions and what sorts of things they're going to want to take on and what sorts of things they're willing to do. You know, when the world is ending, every decision you make counts and forces you to really sort of have a look at yourself and figure out what it is that you're willing to do and what you want to do. Yeah. So I think that sort of... Sorry, go ahead.
There's a very interesting clock on character growth in this game.
Without
like, unlike something like D&D where you're like, I'm going to adventure till I die.
Exactly. Like, and there's a clock without there being, you know, a ticking time bomb that's going to end at the end of this session, right? Because that can sort of rush you to things that feel artificial, right? It's just the fact that you know that the universe is finite in a very real way.
Yeah.
I think I remember one of the examples of one of the adventures you can go on is like salvage missions right at the edge of the burn. That would be the most intense thing I can think of, to go in there knowing if you don't get out, if you don't allot time to get out, you ain't getting out, because that burn's coming. And if you're right at the edge, that's gonna be very bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, you know, that interesting idea of advancement, because you did bring up, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons, it is sort of always the assumption like, oh, we're going to play this campaign. I'm going to play this character until our group falls apart, you know, whether that's you know, 3 weeks or a year, that's like sort of what it feels like. But in this game with level advancement, you know, the only growth feature they have in this game is these story paths. So it's really interesting to look at like, okay, what is this journey as I go over this arc of a story path? Because, you know, it is recommended for every 2 hours of play, one character in your party will achieve a story path moment. So say if you're saying with, you know, you're playing with 3 players, I got lost on the math here, but that's 3, 9, 12 games where you're, wow. So there is like a, you know, it will be happening. These players will be hitting these story path events, which is sort of like, because they have to have these moments of growth usually to get this next echelon. So your characters are constantly on this track of growing and changing. It's, not negotiable for your characters, which is very interesting, because I feel like, in other games, you can be the same person forever and ever and ever if you are resistant to story and change. But in this game, you can't if you want to grow as a character, which is a really interesting narrative way of framing it. I also, am really interested to see what a game looks like where all of the characters hit a story path. And then you all choose another story path, for that next advancement. Like, how does that work? How do those story paths build or interplay? Because it feels like, so much of our lives, we're like, oh, this is my mission in life. That's why it's my story path. Then it's like, what happens when you achieve that? What happens when you make the perfect weapon? What happens when you successfully pull off your double life? What's the next step? I think is a really interesting part of leveling in this game.
Can you have multiple story paths at the same time, or is it just go on one until it's done, or until you swap to another one?
Right. So until you swap to, I believe you can choose to abandon a story path and pick up another one. Otherwise, you do have to play a story path to its completion if you want to start another one after that. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it kind of has like a built-in ambition to it, right? Whereas like if your ambition changes, then you have to go to a new story path. That's really cool. So how does
what it's? Go
ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, can I ask what that's like as somebody running the game to have these like different story paths that people are on? Because like as a person playing this character, it's like I want my things to come up, and obviously as a player, I'm going to try and make decisions that lead me toward those hitting those story beats.
Yeah.
But like as a GM, like how does that work, trying to make everybody's work together and to like incorporate those things into a session?
Yeah, it has definitely been a challenge that is a unique challenge to those, preparing to run Burn Bryte, because also, for this campaign, I was given a module, right? And say, okay, you have to play through this module. And then it's like, okay, but then in character creation, everybody picked these story paths. So, and I have to satisfy these story path moments. So finding cohesion between the module I was given and the story path has created some interesting challenges, but also some interesting scenes and encounters that never would have happened had it not been for the story path. So, I think, the module I was given, I was like, okay, this would take us about 5 episodes to play through, like 5 2-hour sessions. So I'm going to ask for 10 episodes so that way we can build in enough time to explore those moments and to, hit the main beats of the story while also hitting the beats of everybody else's path. So like, one of my characters picked up the mystery path. So I built a mystery into their ship and the identity of the ship. And of course, that's not part of the module, but it's something, they are dealing with this strange presence or these oddities on a ship while also trying to save the galaxy in this module. So it's definitely a weaving process in this game, but something I think makes this game unique and special.
I have to brag on Celeste just a little bit. She's done such an amazing job of doing that weaving that I can specifically think of when each of my fellow players achieved their first story point. And for all 3 of them, it wasn't until they said, yeah, I hit this story point and here's what it was, that I realized that it was a woven in outside of the module thing.
Ow.
Truly, the mystery, one of our other players is to tame a beast, and that's where the blip came from that Atash accidentally turned into. That's a whole other story. And the third one is to gain a following, and all 3 of those, and I'm only not speaking about mine because I knew what mine was, obviously, so I couldn't be so surprised by it. But those other 3 were so beautifully woven in and have made the story so much richer. It's definitely in a thought experiment of running this sort of thing and watching what Celeste has done. It is definitely something that is a different approach than, say, reading a published adventure and running what's in there and like allowing your players to sort of be creative and make their own story because of their individual in the moment choices. And it's so very exciting this way to have these other threads sort of woven in that, are going to be completely your own groups, and how they can or how they do or maybe don't tie into the adventure that you're running. The beast that our other player has begun to befriend saved her in the middle of a very intense battle in this place that we absolutely should not be. So her story path has woven into the story. It's really, really interesting.
I can see it being interesting to do character creation and leaving out what story path you choose when you're doing it all together, because then that will add to the nice surprise tidbits when you get to that later. I think that's pretty cool. So mechanically then, how does this all work?
So there are each story path has 5 specific sort of levels to it. And it tells you what it is that you have to achieve or accomplish or have happen to you in some cases in order to tick off that particular story beat for yourself. For the most part, they go in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Many of them, the middle 3 are sort of, they happen in whatever order the narrative takes you, but there's definitely a beginning and an end to each story path. And so at the end of a given session, you check in, the GM and the players check in, and do you think you have accomplished one of the things on your story path list? And if you have, and if everyone agrees that you have, then you get a bonus. You get a level up, you get to advance, right? And that pretty much, with a few minor exceptions, pretty much always mean either you are increasing a single die size or you are gaining a new special ability or Nova ability. Which means that advancement is pretty slow and fairly minor. I mean, some of those special abilities and Nova abilities can be a lot. But those at the very most, you're really only getting a max of 2 abilities in your story path. The rest of them are just die increases. So advancement is slow. And if you are used to, I'm going to use D&D as an example. If you're used to the power jumps per level and then having those like 5th level and 11th level where the power really jumps and it's a whole different tier of play, right? That's not really a Burn Bryte thing. Even if you get a story path thing every single session for 5 sessions, I mean, that's 3 dice increase that you may or may not use in a given session, and a couple of new special abilities. That's a slower system than many people may be used to. And I think that's fine. I think that reinforces that it isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose to do and how you do it and how you work with the rest of your team to do it.
Yeah, it really, that kind of riffing off that, it really is a game about learning how to live in your character, day to day, which I love. It just feels like such a unique challenge and experience that has made it just really nice because it really does feel satisfying, even though you aren't, accumulating all this stuff. It feels very satisfying to keep playing this game. I also do like that it gives a greater weight to things like equipment in this universe, and like money actually means something, because now, you can use money to buy items that work with your abilities or enhance the abilities you already have. So instead of putting all the focus on these random powers that you get as you get levels, you have to earn these awesome pieces of equipment and, these upgrades for your ship. And then, that way, you do good, and then you can buy good stuff and you can continue to do good and buy more stuff. So I actually really enjoy how simple that mechanic is for leveling. And it is definitely unlike a lot of other systems out there. So really cool to experience.
part of it is tickling the min-max portion of my brain. And like part of me wants to go through and scour through all the rules and see what's the optimal story path, like abandon this path, go to this path, and what can I upgrade to get to the best stats, and yeah, I'm definitely from the 90s for role playing, that's for sure. But yeah, it's really interesting that you can just go through, hey, I hit this beat, this is what I get. Let's do it. It seems pretty fast.
Yeah, I also really, really like that in the, story path section of the rules, they say that before you start every single game, you should go around and review what your story paths are and what your next event is. So as a group, before you start playing, it recommends in the rules that you do that. And then it also recommends at the very end of every session, you end the game, and before you all go away, you look once again at, okay, what is my path? What is my goal? To help remind both, your party about what you're trying to accomplish, and then also your game master. So I really like that as sort of like a warm up and cool down, for any game. It feels like a really cool way to focus on each character and just to remind everybody, where we're at in the story and where we are in our personal growth.
And it also kind of leaves a space open for some safety tool work there as well. So if any lines or veils are needed at the start,
you have this little built-in warm-up time to talk about your stories and your paths and your expectations. It's really great.
And then at the end of the game, if you needed to decompress because of an extra intense session, you've got that time set aside. I think that's really cool that this story path thing that bookends your session really kind of naturally weaves itself into that sort of talk, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and that's a conversation I like to have at the end of sessions of games anyway, too, is like, okay, here's what we did this time. Quick recap. Also, like, here's what I'd love to see next time. Here's what I like. Here's the thing that I'm, like of the 10 things that came up in this game, here's the 1 or 2 that I'm like super interested in. And like, I like to kind of let my GM know, like, here's the thread that I would like to pull on. And so I think talking through the story paths gives you the opportunity to do that too. It's just built in.
Yeah. It reminds me of, there's a aftercare kind of session procedure out there called Stars and Wishes, which is, where you talk about the things you love this session and then, the things you wish were in the game or what you want to see next time. So it feels like that mechanic is built in, which is just super fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that we want to cover before we wrap things up?
I mean, I just want to say, really, this playing Burn Bryte has kind of opened my eyes up to a genre that I didn't anticipate falling in love with. But once I started exploring what science fantasy is as a genre and how it plays in role-playing games, I love it so much, and I feel that it has influenced my design and my creativity, playing this game and kind of breaking outside of my box to try something new. It's just done me a world of good. So I can't recommend enough to people if you are, on the edge of picking up this game. Absolutely do it. Just find a group. It's super easy to make characters, as you've seen. So, it's not a big time sink just to try a game out, with a group of friends. So just try it. And I think you'll enjoy it. I know I certainly have.
Yeah. I mean, it took the words right out of my mouth. It's science fantasy, science fiction. I think I mentioned this last time, not something that immediately grabbed my attention, but I love what this system is. I love what the lore of this setting is. And I can't wait to see what other people create with this system. There's already at least one other stream series out there that's using the system. I can't wait to go back and watch some of their stuff, see what people come up with, what third-party publishers? No, that's not a thing. But see what everyone else can come up with is a thing. It's also, how often do you get to to hop in at literally the beginning
Inception.
of a new RPG system, right? I can't wait to see what additional content Roll20 and the designers come out with. But like right now, how exciting that you can jump in and know exactly as much as everyone else. There is no pressure in any way to know any more or any less than you do coming in. Pressure real or imagined, usually imagined, but that's a whole other conversation. I just think it's super exciting, and it's new and it's recent, and grab it now. Get in on it.
Well, Celeste, Eugenio, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Burn Bryte. Can you remind everybody where they can find you online, what sort of things you're working on?
Yeah, the best way to find out everything I'm doing up and coming is to follow me on Twitter at @CConowitch. If you want to check out all of the streams that I do, all of the podcasts I do, what I am publishing, you can always check out my website, CelesteConowitch.com. And for those of you who are listening, modern-ish, September 1st, 2020, I just recently released my first solo title on the DMs Guild for an adventure. It's called Dino World. So it's definitely not a ripoff of Jurassic Park. So if you don't love dinosaurs, if you love dinosaurs, if you love Jurassic Park, you should pick up a copy of my adventure Dino World. I'm super proud of it. It's a lot of pulp action fun. So check that out. And of course, check out the Venture Maidens podcast if you run out of character creation episodes to listen to.
You can follow me on Twitter at DMJazzyHands. That's also probably the best and easiest place to get info on what I'm up to. You can follow the podcast at DND Last Refuge. That's sort of my baby and what got me started into content creation and has been going the longest. So if you get done with character creation and Venture Maidens, we have a fair number of episodes that you can get through. And then my website has links to the stuff that I have published on the DMs Guild, either as a designer or an editor. It has links to, I also do some video game streaming on my Twitch channel. You can find me there. And anytime a new stream series or anything like that gets announced, I'll announce it on Twitter and then add it to my website as soon as possible. So EugenioVargas.com, also a good place. Plus you can see all these super cute pictures of me doing musical theater because that's my actual career. I have not, well, actually lately I sort of seem to have made the leap into full-time freelancer, but not so much by choice. Usually I, by trade, am an actor and a music director. So my website also has cute shots of that stuff.
All right. Well, thank you again for sitting down to do this with us. And thank you to everyone tuning in. We'll see you next time. And that's a wrap for series 32, everyone. We are so glad you could join us for the series. If you enjoyed what you heard, you can head on over to Roll20 and get a copy of the game for yourself.
Don't forget to check out the Thirsty Sword Lesbians and Unbound Kickstarters. Both of them are super fantastic games. We'll put links to them in the show notes. Find them there.
Absolutely. Also, I would love to see some of you all join me every other Friday on my live stream of my Chimera game that we are titling A Tale of Twinkle and Awe, where we are blending fantasy, superhero, and magical girl genres together. So far, we came up with a solar punk world with holographic magic technology, including hover public transportation and even hover shoes.
Nice.
And there's a sentient parrot elected official that we've named behind the scenes to be named on stream. So stay tuned for that. It's really, really very good. But you can find us every other Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central at twitch.chimera.games.
Speaking of sentient parrot elected officials, how about your human elected officials? Just a reminder to everybody, there's early voting in a lot of places happening right now. You can check your state laws and all of that kind of stuff. I think myvote.gov is the place to go. But please either request your absentee ballot, find a place to do early voting, make a plan to go on election day to go vote. Please absolutely 100% exercise your right to vote. I mean, this really is mostly for our American listeners. If you live other places, also vote. But, you know, whenever that happens for you. But honestly, I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important this election is for so many, many, many people. Please go vote. Please exercise your democratic rights before they take them away from us.
and that's
go
not,
do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and honestly, like, I don't mean that as a joke. Please, before they strip so many of us of our rights, go use them.
Absolutely.
Aside from all of that, it is one of our favorite times. It's review time.
Woo.
This is our last review. We said that last time and someone sent us one. Thank you.
So thank you so much, there.
Thank you, Scott Cass from the United States of America on iTunes. But please send us reviews. Ooh, we need them.
Yeah, we do.
We need them so much. This one from Scott Cass is titled Love the Show. Really enjoy this show. And the conceit is brilliant, and randomly creating characters for systems I may never play is something I do on my own spare time, too. The hosts are both extremely enthusiastic, which helps carry through some of the duller systems. Hope to see you guys do Burning Wheel sometime soon. Thank you very much. It is on our list.
Absolutely.
We have an ever-growing list, and constantly growing list of games. But yeah, thank you so much. That was a very nice review, and we're glad you're enjoying it. Even the boring systems, even Heroes Unlimited. Thank you for sticking with us. All right, and with all of that out of the way, we'll see you in a week, 2 weeks?
3 weeks? Somewhere
weeks?
around there.
I don't know.
Time doesn't mean anything anymore.
I don't know, you guys. I don't know.
Just go
We'll
vote.
see you soon. Go vote. Honestly, you've got plenty of time. You have at least 2 weeks because I'm not looking at a calendar. Go vote. Okay? Don't come back until you vote. There will be no new episode for you until you have voted. Just kidding. I think one comes out the day before Election Day.
The day before.
You know what? Maybe we'll hold off and you won't get it till Wednesday until you prove to me that you voted.
I don't think either of us can handle that, Amelia.
Okay. All right. Well, goodbye, everyone. Till
Bye,
next
everyone.
time.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to leave us a rating or review, we have links to various review platforms out there, including Apple Podcasts, in our show notes. Also, check the show notes for links to our other projects. Thanks for joining us, and remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We will see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs. Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you'll find other great shows like Neoscum.
Neoscum is a narrative comedy podcast featuring 5 Chicago improvisers antagonizing their way through the role-playing classic Shadowrun. It follows a group of misfits and outsiders: Z, the acerbic cyber troublemaker; Pox, the candy junkie klepto from across the pond; Tech Wizard, the public access actor with a petulant thirst for adventure; and Dak Rambo, the nastiest trucker this side of the Robo-Mason-Dixon. Join the irascible Neoscum crew on a puerile rockin' road trip through a weirdo world of tomorrow, doling out street justice to every deeb they encounter, whether they deserve it or not.
I did it.
Yeah, I got waveforms.
Like a professional.
I know. Now I have too many waveforms because my kids are running above my head.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh, good.
I found out I've got RX for some audio cleanup stuff, and I can just select the very low, like 50 and under bass frequency and delete it. Gets rid of all my kids plotting.
That's
Like instantaneously.
that's
Very
remarkable.
nice. This is why we record when my kids aren't home, so that because I don't think that I could. They're very loud.
Yeah. Aside from your dad opening the garage door and
Oh yeah, the dog barking and the lawn mowing and the yeah. Yeah, it's not like
all
the
good.
adults at home are quiet.
Right now, both my computer and my refrigerator are having a very hard time with how hot it is. So that's going to be fun background noise.
at least background noise that's consistent.
Yeah, noise
is-
reduction. It'll be
that's
fine.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The magic
getting
of
out of
editing.
there. All right. So any questions before we start?
Oh no, just quick question. Well, yes. And so for make, is your Roll20 still loading, or is it jammed on my end?
It says Burn Bryte, Burning Daylight, and it's can you see me scrolling around?
No, we
no.
just have a big white line.
Maybe we're on the wrong screen.
I don't know. I don't.
It
share
kind of
my
looks
screen.
like Pong is about to
Does
start.
a little bit look like a large Pong screen? Yes. Yes,
And
it
as
does.
fun as that would be.
As fun as that is.
Welcome to Character Creation Cast. Today we're talking about creating characters for Pong.
Pong. Yes.
I just like to get really deep into it.
Okay, so now I need to remember how to invite you to the campaign.
Go to
yeah, so
exit game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you were so close.
Is it in here somewhere?
It's in the settings tab that you were. I'm pointing at the screen like you can see where I'm pointing.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing it too. I'm pointing with my mouse, and it's like it's so dumb.
Home. I love it. Go home.
Okay.
Click on C3. Yep, right there.
Ooh.
And then invite players on the right.
Ooh.
I'm probably just giving us the
just
link.
copy. Yeah, just copy that link into the Zoom chat.
Look at that link.
Look
I
at
can figure out how to get to the Zoom chat. More chat. Ooh. Hello,
I should
everyone.
open my chat.
Here's
There
a
we go.
link for you.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
I was wondering what this
Indeed.
attributes and abilities tab was for, and I never really cared to ask about it because it seemed too advanced for me.
It's if you really want to go in and like mess with the
Program
character
it
sheet
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. There was part of me a while ago that wanted to recreate the Palladium character sheets in Roll20, and I said, no, thanks.
Yeah, there are times where I'm like, learning a game is really hard. Learning to do a game other places is really, really hard. And it depends on, whether I've medicated for the ADHD or not,
Yeah.
That's very fair. All right. Now I have to find my episode notes. I think
You start.
just making sure.
You start.
I'm just like sometimes you're like looking around to figure out if it's on me or if it's on you. And it's on you today, sir.
I know. I just wanted to alter this question. Okay. Cool. So now that I'm ready, Is everybody else ready? I'm sure the answer is probably
Yeah, give me 1 second, because there's a train passing very slowly above my apartment, and it's not actually usually. So this happens all the time when I'm recording my show, and I usually just stop. But usually they just pass by, it's super loud, and then it's done. Right now, this train is going very slowly. And so the noise of the train is not getting picked up, but it's vibrating my apartment. So my mic boom is vibrating, which is causing like weird. So give me 1 second for it to finish passing.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna like take off my earrings too, because they're like clicking on my headphones.
Oh, no.
That's why I never wear earrings.
I do have ice cubes. I will do my best to not. It's so hot. I can't.
I don't mind the clinking.
Yeah.
Just don't shake your ice cubes around while you're talking. And it'll
Pull
be
a Virginia Wolf.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're mostly good over here.
Okay, awesome.
They swarm together and create collective consciences. Consciousnesses. Oh, y'all. Create collective consciousnesses, which is what you play.
So that's going to be super fun to edit later.
We just kept talking.
Yeah. I think, Amelia, you're muted.
There we go. The dog was barking.
What was I going to say? I don't remember.
Well, very cool. I have to find. Whoa! It beeped at me. My outline. There we go. Oh, that was the chat. We have so much money.
Well,
Not really, but that's fine.
ship modules are expensive, so not really.
We'll say we do.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna stop my recording.
Stop the recording.
I did it.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Take that waveform.
That's right. Yes, and I will tell you that as soon as this train stops passing over my apartment.
Oh. Yay.
Stop.
Is that a stop? All right.
That's a stop.